Namah Shri Atirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine Swamine Tapaharine. We were discussing Swami Vivekananda's lectures from Colombo to Almora. In that we saw that Swamiji has arrived in Madurai after addressing the people of the gathering who welcomed him in Shivagangai and Manamadura. Then Swamiji comes to Madurai. And we last time saw that how in a wonderful words the people of Madurai addressed Swamiji and welcomed him. And in reply to that welcome address, Swamiji starts by saying that the praise that they are according him is not to him as a Swami Vivekananda, but it should be given to the Raja of Ramnad, because it was Raja who first thought of sending this sannyasin to Chicago. He inspired Swamiji to go to Chicago. That is what Swamiji is telling, and he is disowning the praise that is accorded to him, that is given to him, and telling the people of southern India that this Raja should have become a sannyasin rather than a Raja, rather than a king, because it is that which is he is really fit for. Now we will continue in the next paragraph what Swamiji says. In a very relatively small lecture, but very profound things Swamiji mentions here. So we will discuss them. Previously Swamiji has told that he is very much tired, and by this continuous traveling and lecturing, he is exhausted and he cannot address the people for a long time. But in spite of that, we see this lecture, he could go on telling them about the important aspects of our Indian religion and culture. So now we will read. Wherever there is a thing really needed in one part of the world, the complement will find its way there and supply it with new life. This is true in the physical world as well as in the spiritual. If there is a want of spirituality in one part of the world, and at the same time that spirituality exists elsewhere, whether we consider struggle for it, whether we consciously struggle for it or not, that spirituality will find its way to the part where it is needed and balance the inequality. In the history of the human race, not once or twice, but again and again, it has been the destiny of India in the past to supply spirituality to the world. So just like in the physical world we see that if there is a lack of one type of thing on one side, then it is balanced from where it is abundant. So this we see, in the physical world works like that. So wherever there is a supply of vegetables in one place and there is a dearth of vegetables, the vegetables are supplied from that part of the country or world to other part. Where there is abundance of minerals and on the other part there is lack of minerals, then we see that those minerals will be supplied by that particular region to that other region. So this is physical law. Now Swamiji says this is the same law applies in the spiritual world also. That wherever there is a lack of spirituality, lack of spiritual ideas, then wherever there is abundance, that will be supplied. And Indian race has been doing it forever. So it has been a destiny of India in the past to supply spirituality to the world. What? Because we are as if we have the mine of spirituality. So wherever there is a mine of spirituality, that spirituality will be transported to other parts where it is not available. We find that whenever either by mighty conquest or by commercial supremacy, different parts of the world have been kneaded into one whole race and requests have been made from one corner to the other. Each nation, as it were, poured forth its own quota, either political, social or spiritual. So whenever Swamiji is telling that whenever there has been a conquest, now when one part of the world is conquering other part of the world, whenever it has happened previously, large portions of the world have been taken over by some kind of empire, previously Roman, Greeks, Egyptians, and later on British. So all these kinds of different phases of this expansion of conquest, always it has happened that political, social and spiritual forces, streams have travelled through that conquest. We have discussed this earlier also, Swamiji had mentioned. So here he says, India's contribution to the sum total of human knowledge has been spirituality, philosophy. This she contributed even long before the rising of the Persian Empire. So Persian Empire is roughly considered to be somewhere around 3000 BC. So that time it was more at the peak of it. So, or maybe even earlier. So before even that Persian Empire came up, there was such an upsurge of spiritual current traveling from India to those kind of regions. The second time was during Persian Empire. So the known first time was pre-Persian Empire. Second was Persian Empire. For the third time during the ascendancy of the Greeks, and now for the fourth time during the ascendancy of the English. She is going to fulfill the same destiny once more. So every time what we are doing, whenever the channels are open for different types of political, social, spiritual powers to propagate themselves into other regions, then what we have done, we have propagated spirituality and philosophy. That has been our job. That has been our, Swamiji says, that India's destiny. That has been our destiny. As Western ideas of organization and external civilization are penetrating and pouring into our country, whether we will have them or not, so Indian spirituality and philosophy are deluging the lands of the West. None can resist it, and no more can we resist some sort of material civilization from the West. A little of it perhaps is good for us, and a little spiritualization is good for the West. Thus the balance will be preserved. It is not that we ought to learn everything from the West, or that they have to learn everything from us, but each will have to supply and hand down to future generations what it has for the future accomplishment of that dream of ages, the harmony of nations, an ideal world. So now because of the British conquer, we have Western materialism, and because of that we are becoming materialistic. And Swamiji says to some extent perhaps it may be necessary also, but the same way, with the same effect, our spirituality is traveling to the West. Then he says, whether that ideal world will ever come, I do not know. Whether that social perfection will ever be reached, I have my own doubts. But whether it comes or not, each one of us will have to work for the idea as if it will come tomorrow, and as if it only depends on his work and his alone. So, by West supplying us materialism and we supplying them spiritualism or spirituality, which balances the world. Now, after this balance, Swami says, I doubt. I don't know whether really this ideal world, which is balanced world, will ever come or not. I don't know. I doubt myself. But whether it comes or not, let us not think about it, that whether it will really come or it is our fancy. But let us work towards it. Let us work towards achieving that balanced world, and as if it depends on our own contribution only, as if nobody else, but I myself am responsible for bringing that balance. Let us work to that effect. Each one of us will have to believe that everyone else in the world has done his work, And the only work remaining to be done to make the world perfect has to be done by himself. This is the responsibility we have to take upon ourselves. So we should not think that somebody else will do. We should take upon ourselves to do this responsibility of carrying spirituality to the West. We should not wait for somebody else. They used to say that there are sayings that Shivaji Maharaj can be born in the house of a neighbor, but not in my own house. So some great person should be born, definitely, but it should not be born in my home. He should be born in my neighbor's home. That is our generally we find idea in India, that nobody wants to take the risk. Great people we want. All of us want Swami Vivekanandas, Sri Ramakrishnas, Shivaji Maharaj, and so many such kind of great rulers to be born. But they don't want them to be born in their own home. They want, let neighbor have Swami Vivekananda or such kind of great personalities. Let us not have headache of rearing such kind of personalities in our house. So Swamiji is telling, no, we should take this responsibility. We should think, no, in my home, myself, I will do this. So in the meanwhile, in India, there is a tremendous revival of religion. There is danger ahead as well as glory. For revival sometimes breeds fanaticism, sometimes goes to the extreme, so that often it is not even in the power of those who start the revival to control it when it has gone beyond a certain length. So, because of this kind of exchange, there is a tremendous revival coming in India. And in this revival, which is good also, there is also a danger. So Swamiji is kind of warning us. What is that danger? That going to the extreme. And which are those extremes he is discussing? So that often it is not even in the power of those who start the revival to control it when it has gone beyond this. So those people like Swami Vivekananda himself, or great saints like Ramakrishna, great sages and incarnations came and they initiated a revival, religious revival in this country. But Swamiji is risking that after initiating this revival, it may go out of control. It may end up into some kind of peculiar extremisms, peculiar fanaticisms, and it may be not being good. This thing, it may be detrimental to our own society. So Swamiji is warning. It is better, therefore, to be forewarned. We have to find our way between the sila of old superstitious orthodoxy and the charybdis of materialism, of Europeanism, of soullessness, of the so-called reform, which has penetrated to the foundation of Western progress. So what is it? Two, sila and charybdis. Means, this is Greek story. Swamiji is, because he is talking this thing, this is the famous this thing. So Swamiji is telling that example. But in India also we have such kind of example. So like from frying pan to the fire, or from fire to the frying pan. We say like that. So this side there is a fire and other side there is a frying pan. So this side Scylla, this Greek story, that the ship used to go in the river or in the sea, and there used to be some kind of pull or some kind of this thing, and the ship will be pulled in this thing. One side there is a cave-like structure, and another side there is a valley-like something. So on one side there is a Scylla, they call, and other side it is charybdis. Means what? The ship goes this side, it will sink. This side also it will get destroyed. So Swamiji says exactly this thing should not happen. What is that Scylla? Is old superstitious orthodoxy. If we go this side, if we hold on to our old orthodoxy, which is full of superstitions, then it is a danger. We will get again the same problem. We will have again the same problems in religion and society. And this side if we go, which is completely soullessness, European materialism, and the soullessness and so-called reform. So that we saw in the world. What they did, they completely denied religion and they went into a communist culture. They wanted to bring out such kind of a society where religion has nothing to do and only material development and reforms will be there, social reforms will be there. But that failed, because that also is another extreme, that is a charybdis. These two have to be taken care of. So the ship, what happens, that as per the story, the ship has to maneuver very carefully in between. It should not go in this side because it will get destroyed. It should not go this side, it should not. So if it absolutely carefully maneuvers itself into the waters, then it will survive. It will cross the danger zone. So we also are passing through that danger zone because of the religious revival. So we have to take care that we should not end up into those extremes. In the first place, we cannot become Westerns. So he is telling, in the first place, can we give up our Indianness, Indian traditionalness, our ancient culture and religion? Can we become entirely become Westerns, transform ourselves? Therefore, imitating the Westerns is useless. So, we cannot become Westerns, Swami says. We cannot completely change ourselves. We cannot leave our thousands of years of our nature, our genesis, our very manufacturing structure, and take upon something alien structure. We cannot do that. So that is useless, Swami says. To even aspire for becoming completely westernized is useless. Suppose you can imitate the Westerns, that moment you will die. You will have no more life in you. That is what Swamiji is warning. So if you, suppose you take up Western life, Western culture, then you will die because you will have lost entirely your own standing. Your own ground you will have lost permanently. And you have gone into something which is unknown territory. So it happens now. So if we trespass into somebody's property, which is unknown, we don't know what is there. If some area, then what happens? We don't know what is there, what are the roads there, what are the paths, where they go. If you go to some village where you don't know the roads, then you get lost. Exactly like that. If you enter into that territory which is unknown to us, the Western materialism, then you will die. And in the second place, it is impossible. You cannot do that. A stream is taking its rise away beyond where time began, flowing through millions of ages of human history. Do you mean to get hold of that stream and push it back to its source, to a Himalayan glacier? So can Ganga, which has almost reached the point of Ganga Sagar, where it joins the ocean, now you push back by force, that you say, no, I want to again go back. I want to change this. So to take it back, the Ganga, to its own source, Gangotri or Gomukh. Can you do that? So from the glacier, from where the Ganga is coming out, can you push it back to the glacier? No, you cannot. Just like that, Swamiji says, our society, for thousands of years, that ancient Hindu culture is coming out. And you say now, no, I will push this culture back again. And I will change to something else. It is impossible. Even if that were practicable, it would not be possible for you to be Europeanized. If you find it is impossible for the European to throw off the few centuries of culture which there is in the West, do you think it is possible for you to throw off the culture of shining scores of centuries? So when you say that Europeans, when they came, whatever Europeans came and settled here during the British Empire, they could not become Hindus here. After coming here, they were living as Western people. They developed their own required things around themselves. They built their houses according to Western model. Their whole structure was Western. Whatever British houses we see even now, their monuments and all, everything are European monuments, European architecture. So when they, after migrating to India, after settling down here, if they could not change their architecture, they could not change their culture, their eating habits, their dress wearing habits, nothing they could change. Absolutely nothing. Then how can you expect that you will change your culture to them? It is completely impossible. It is completely a false premise. So Swamiji is telling, so how are you expecting that you will change your culture to them? It cannot be. We must also remember, and that he is saying, you are shining scores of centuries, Swamiji is telling. So your culture is so shining, it is so bright, it is so profusely full of so many great ideas, so many great traditions, thoughts, texts, scriptures, so many things are there. And you suddenly say, no, I will change. How can it possible? You have been shining brightly for centuries and now you say no. Western people, they practically have nothing like that. They had no shining culture of centuries. So still they cannot leave it. Then how can you live? One who has thousands and thousands of years of flow, the stream is flowing. How it can be pushed back? So Swamiji says, we must also remember that even in every little village god and every little superstitious custom is that which we are accustomed to call our religious faith. So, what is that? Every little village god and every little superstitious custom is that which we are accustomed to call our religious. So, we don't know, we did not have a consolidated idea of one religion. So long we have been freely practicing our own local religions, so to speak, but which are based on the Vedic ideas, Vedic traditions. So everybody is having his own village god and his own superstitious customs they are having. But local customs are infinite and contradictory. Which are we to obey and which not to obey? So this one village will have a local custom, local village deity practicing something. They think that this village deity has been for hundreds of years asking us to sacrifice such and such animal every such and such day in a year. So we do it for hundreds of years. This tradition is going. Another village deity exactly reverse. Another village deity is absolutely does not demand any sacrifice, and in fact it is against sacrifices. And those villagers, they absolutely shun the sacrifice. They don't like it. So there are so many different kinds of local customs and traditions in our country. Then which one to obey? Now this village god says, you sacrifice me this animal. Another village god says, absolutely never sacrifice it. I am giving example. Swamiji did not say this. He will come to it later on. But this is the Swamiji is pointing out this difference. Then he says, the Brahmin of southern India, for instance, would shrink in horror at the sight of another Brahmin eating meat. A Brahmin in the north thinks it is most glorious and holy thing to do. He kills goats by the hundreds in sacrifice. So he says, in our country, Brahmin themselves have different customs. A southern Brahmin will have a absolutely non-meat eating habit, but northern Brahmin will have a meat eating habit. We see the people living on the seashores. They will have a habit of eating fish and all. But people living inside the country, in a remote, away from the shores, seashores, they will shun the fish and everything. They will never touch also. So there are, Swamiji is giving example that even Brahmins themselves, some Brahmins eat meat, some don't. Some they may eat fish, some they may not. So like this, if there are so many ways of our own customs, local customs, having different customs in different localities, then what he says, if you put forward your custom, they are equally ready with theirs. If you say, no, my custom should be followed, or if you force it on the country or in the larger masses, then they will say, no, how we will accept yours? We also have our own custom. Then what will happen? Various are the customs all over India, but they are local. The greatest mistake made is that ignorant people always think that this local custom is the essence of our religion. So now where the mistake is, now we see what Swamiji is talking about has been the debate of this time also. Even now, people are continuously debating that whether one should be vegetarianism or whether one should follow non-vegetarian, whether Hinduism professes vegetarianism or Hinduism is a non-vegetarian religion, whether it is a animal sacrificing religion or it is not. So many debates go on, and they want to define Hinduism by these kinds of localized ideas, but they are not. Swamiji is saying they are making mistake. They were just local customs, and why are you making combining it and confusing it with religion? The essence of religion is different, and these local customs are different. Next he continues, but beyond this there is a still greater difficulty. There are two sorts of truth we find in our Shastras. One that is based upon the eternal nature of man, the one that deals with the eternal relation of God, soul and nature. The other with local circumstances, environments of the time, social institutions of the period and so forth. So what are these? One part of the Shastra deals with eternal laws. What is man? What is soul? What is God? What is karma? What is rebirth? What is cosmic law? Creation, dissolution, sustenance. This is one set of rules. And another thing is dealing with what? This is dealing with the local customs. This is dealing with how should you eat, how should you sleep, how should you drink water, and what kind of food you should eat, and so on and so many such kind of details. So these are the two parts mentioned, two things mentioned in our Shastras. So Swamiji says, first class of the truths is chiefly embodied in our Vedas, our scriptures. The second in the Smritis, the Puranas, etc. So what we see in the Vedas, it is continuously dealing with the first kind of things, which are man, soul, God, cosmic laws, karma, creation, and all these things. And what is the second part is Smritis, Shrutis, that is Swamiji calls it Shrutis. And what are Smritis and Puranas do? They deal with so many local customs, so many local traditions, so many local rules, laws, and truths. You can say truths also, local truths. We must remember that for all periods, the Vedas are the final goal and authority. And if the Puranas differ in any respect from the Vedas, that part of the Puranas is to be rejected without mercy. This is one of the great things Swamiji has said. It is one of the, it is like giving Supreme Court gives judgment on some very, very prime issue. It is just like that. Swamiji, like a person, is giving a judgment on a great debates and conflicts going on in our society. Swamiji puts a full stop on these conflicts by giving this judgment. And we should really follow this judgment of Swamiji. What Swamiji says, this should be underlined. This sentence should be, it should be written down by everyone. What is that sentence? We must remember that for all periods, the Vedas are the final goal and authority. Because they are dealing with something eternal. They are dealing with something universal. It cannot be that Vedas for you are different and Vedas for me are different. It cannot be. It will be fallacy to say that. So Vedas cannot be denied. Vedas cannot be renounced. They cannot be given up. With the Vedic truths, the scriptures, the Shrutis, they cannot be given up because they are talking about each one of us. My karma and your karma cannot be working in different laws. The law of karma will be applicable to me the same way it is applicable to you. But what Smritis and Puranas say, that may differ. So maybe if at all there was an American Smriti or American Puranas, they will deal with only American people, their local culture, their local traditions. And Indian Puranas and Indian Smritis will deal with Indian people. So that may not applicable to each other. So this kind of thing we have to understand that wherever there is a contradiction between Vedas and Puranas, then that part of Purana which does not go with the Vedic truths, it should be then it should be rejected. Without mercy, Swami says. It should be rejected because that means it doesn't stand the test of truth. It doesn't stand the test of time. So whenever we get confused, whether this Puranic story is relevant or not, whether this Puranic story, it looks absurd, it looks against the laws of scriptures. It looks like Shrutis and Vedanta are telling something and this Puranic story goes against it. Whenever such kind of conflict comes, question comes, then what we should do? We should say no. If it goes against Upanishads or scriptures or Vedas, then and there, mercilessly renounce it. No, I will not touch it anymore. Now, these Puranas are no more for me because they are going in contradiction with the Vedas, the Vedanta. Now we will go further. We find then that in all these Smritis, the teachings are different. One Smriti says, this is the custom and this should be the practice of this age. Another one says, this is the practice of this age, and so forth. This is the achara, which should be the custom of the Satya Yuga. And this is the achara, which should be the custom of the Kali Yuga, and so forth. So there are so many Smritis. Everybody is telling different kinds of practices. And that also different practices for different ages. Satya Yuga, different practice, Kali Yuga, different practice like that. Now, this is one of the most glorious doctrines that you have, that eternal truths being based upon the nature of man will never change so long as man lives. They are for all times, omnipresent, universal virtues. So these eternal truths, that glorious doctrines are there. These eternal truths being based upon the eternal laws, nature of man, and omnipresent universal virtues. So they will live till the man lives. Till there is a humanity on this planet, these truths will remain. So we have to stick to those truths. But the Smritis speak generally of local circumstances. This is about Shrutis. Those truths are about Shrutis. But now Smritis are speaking generally about local circumstances, of duties arising from different environments. And they change in the course of time. So this kind of things, they change. There will be, according to southern part of India, there will be different kind of Smritis applicable. The northern India, there may be different Smritis, or maybe different rules applicable, different customs applicable. So we see, Swamiji mentions in other lecture, that even now, in some Himalayan tribes, there is a custom of that Pandavas, Draupadi, sharing one wife between brothers. That custom is even now prevalent. Swamiji quotes it in one of his lectures. So Swamiji says, how can we say that they are doing wrong? If they have this, their tribe in the Himalaya, they are following this custom of having only one wife among all the brothers, like Pandavas had. So this, Swamiji says, when somebody says that, what is this? How can it be done? And this is wrong. Swamiji says, how can you judge like that? Because for them, this is a custom going on. This is a local thing going on for them. And it is only up to them. It should not be imitated throughout India. It is not for them. It is there only, localized. But those laws, those universal truths, those kind of Shrutis, those should be universal. They cannot be different for Himalayan tribe and southern people or northern people or eastern or western. So these universal truths should be kept different, and these local customs should not be mixed. Then he says, this you have always to remember, that because a little social custom is going to be changed, you are not going to lose your religion. Not at all. Remember, these customs have already been changed. There was a time in this very India when, without eating beef, no Brahmin could remain a Brahmin. So this he's telling. See, once upon a time, there was that Brahmin used to eat beef. And if you don't eat beef, you will not be a Brahmin. Like that. There was a pre-Vedic or Vedic times, Swamiji is telling me. You read in the Vedas how when a sannyasin, a king or a great man came into a house, the best bullock was killed. How in time it was found that as we were an agricultural race, killing the best bulls meant annihilation of the race. Therefore, the practice was stopped and a voice was raised against the killing of cows. So they found when probably there was abundance of bullocks at that time. So what as to welcome the guest, who some sannyasi comes, some king comes, some very honored guest comes, then what? We should not feed him with something which is ordinary. No, some best feast we organize, best items we prepare. So what is that? They used to do the best of the bullocks, they used to kill and sacrifice and make them beef and feed them with that. That was those olden days, Swamiji is telling. But later on they found, if we kill the best of the bullocks, then how will we have that good race of this thing of cows? And then that's why they stopped this. So they changed it. Those customs were there and they found it wrong. They find it harmful. Then they changed those customs. Sometimes we find existing then what we now consider the most horrible customs. So now we cannot even think about it. Now we cannot imagine that eating cow. Hindus cannot imagine eating beef now. But the same thing was happening there, and it was supposed to be, Swamiji is telling that he was supposed to be a Brahmin who eats beef. And if he doesn't eat, he is not a Brahmin. In course of time, other laws had to be made. These in turn will have to go, and other Smritis will come. This is one fact we have to learn, that the Vedas being eternal will be one and the same throughout all ages. But the Smritis will have an end. So what he is telling basically, that there is some set of truth that is like a base, like this we are sitting here. This is a lecture hall, this is an auditorium, where there is a floor. There is this floor will remain the same. So many sabhas, so many lectures, discourses, programs will be organized here. So what these chairs, this kind of furniture and these resources will remain. Only people will come, speakers will come on this side, and audience will keep changing. And as and when, according to the context, these two will change. But what will remain all the time steady is this setup that is done here. So setup will remain the same. But what will change? The these things, the superficial things. So exactly same thing. The spiritual setup, the spiritual truths that are founded on the basis of which this creation is founded, they will always remain this. They will be like the foundational building blocks of any building, any construction. Then on the top of it, you rise any number of floors of a building, and that floors may be demolished also afterwards. But the foundation cannot be demolished of that building. The building above you can change any number of times as and when you need, but the foundation cannot be changed. So the same way, Swamiji is pointing out that the Vedas, the eternal truths, will always remain the same, but Smritis will keep on changing. As time rolls on, more and more of the Smritis will go. Sages will come and they will change and direct society into better channels, into duties and into paths which accord with the necessity of the age and without which it is impossible that society can live. So who will now decide? The problem is now again, okay, you are saying, Swamiji, that Smritis will come and go, so you should not stick to the old Smritis. You should have your own relevant contemporary Smritis. Then who will do that? Your question may arise in your mind. Then Swamiji is saying, the sages will come. Every time there will be a sage who will guide the society. Who is the sage now? Swami Vivekananda himself, who is now guiding the society. So he is one of those sages. He may not be the only sage who is guiding. He is one of those sages, contemporary sages. Now he is redefining how we should now follow, which laws we should follow, what customs we should pay attention to, and what customs we should let go of. So this is what we should learn from him. And we should form a contemporary smriti, our own smriti, which will guide the present society. Thus, we have to guide our course, avoiding these two dangers. And I hope that every one of us here will have breadth enough and at the same time faith enough to understand what that means, which I suppose is the inclusion of everything and not the exclusion. So, avoiding these two dangers of going into extreme materialism on one side and extreme superstition orthodoxy on other side, maneuvering our ship of social life, of national life very carefully through the help of these contemporary sages, taking the cue from them, taking the hint from them at how I should live now in the present circumstances. So take the cue from them and very carefully maneuver your ship. So that how you should maneuver? That you should be liberal. You should be very expansive. Your ideas should be very accepting. All-inclusive ideas. But at the same time, you should not be very superficial, very having no depth, but you should be as deep as the ocean. So that kind of Swamiji is expecting us to be of that kind. So then only we can avoid the danger. Because one who is superficial is a European materialistic person. He has no depth at all. And one who has only depth, he has no expanse. One who is, what is he? He is superstitious orthodox person, who is still following those customs which were followed thousands of years back, which are no more relevant. So he is deeply rooted in his Vedic customs, or so to speak, Vedic means ancient customs, which are no more relevant now. So he is deep enough, like an ocean, but he has no expanse. So he is limited. He is not inclusive. He is not universal. And other person, European or materialistic person, what he is very universal. He is very liberal. He accepts everything. He has come, but he has no spine of himself, no substance in himself, no standing of himself, no grounding of himself. So Swami is telling, we should have both of these. This society, the coming society should have these both qualities. I want the intensity of the fanatic plus the extensity of the materialist. Deep as the ocean, broad as the infinite skies, that is the sort of heart we want. Let us be as progressive as any nation that ever existed, and at the same time as faithful and conservative towards our traditions as Hindus alone know how to be. How to be what? Traditional. So, on one part, let us be traditional, very perfectly traditional, but at the same time, what? We should be progressive as well. So, this is very peculiar concoction that Swamiji is recommending to us, that we have to learn how to adopt to this mixture. In plain words, we have first to learn the distinction between the essentials and the non-essentials in everything. The essentials are eternal. The non-essentials have value only for a certain time. And if after a time they are not replaced by something essential, they are positively dangerous. So we say that somebody has some disease and then the doctor recommends him to eat something. Okay, so you have this deficiency of something, vitamin in your body, so please take this supplement. But if that person goes on taking those vitamin supplement, what happens? Another problem comes, overdose of vitamin. Say suppose somebody is having lack of vitamin D, and the doctor suggests him to take vitamin D as a solution. And that person, he doesn't understand what doctor recommended. Doctor told him to take it only for 1 month or 2 months and then stop taking it. But that person did not pay attention to that. And what he did, he kept on taking vitamin D supplements. And then what happens? Then there will be another problem. The health will become again collapse. So this, we have to understand that where to stop, where to actually reform our old customs and devise a new custom. I do not mean that you should stand up and revile all your old customs and institutions. Certainly not. You must not revile even the most evil one of them. Revile none. Even those customs that are now appearing to be positive evils have been positively life-giving in times past. And if we have to remove these, we must not do so with curses, but with blessings and gratitude. Because, you see, that very peculiar types of customs were there. We read in our history, Indian history, for last few centuries, there were so many things, and our social leaders, social reformers came, and they did a great effort. They educated the whole masses to change those kind of practices. There are so many horrible practices going on, and which we find now horrible. But at that particular time, they were serving some great purpose of protecting the society, of protecting the social fabric, or religious fabric, or cultural fabric. That sacrifice, that peculiar kind of practice had to be done that particular time. But now what happened? When later on, when it continued, then it became disastrous. Then it became obnoxious, repulsive. So this Swamiji is telling that let us not curse those kind of customs and practices which were going on some in olden times. Let us be grateful to them and give them up. Now don't practice them, but with gratefulness, with blessings only, you give them up. So that with the blessings and gratitude for the glorious work these customs have done for the preservation of our race, because they were done because of the preservation of our race. So it is like somebody's feet or hand develops gangrene. Okay, somebody's fingers will develop gangrene or some kind of infection, and that infection cannot be handled. Then what doctors do? They cut it. They amputate that limb and they save the body. So exactly that locally, if you see that somebody is cutting somebody's limb, somebody's fingers of the feet or hand, to say that will be it will look obnoxious, repulsive. What are you doing? You are cutting somebody's hand or leg. You are cutting their fingers. Locally, at that particular place, it will look very horrible. But when you see that, oh no, whole body is protected because of that. Because if you don't cut that limb, then another 15 days that person will die. But if you cut that limb, that body will survive for longer, for years together. Exactly that happened. Those kind of repulsive customs of the world, they were doing some job of that time. They protected the race. They protected this entire national body, this national kind of fabric, and that's why they were necessary. So now you may give it up. That is okay, but you should not curse it. You should not have a kind of ingratitude, ungrateful toward them. And then Swamiji said, and we must also remember that the leaders of our societies have never been either generals or kings, but rishis. So who was guiding our society? Like Western people were guided by kings or generals. They're Romans and Greeks and Persians. All we see those Egyptian mummies. Who are they? Those Egyptian mummies and the pyramids and all, they are of their kings. But we see rishis. Our guiding lights and leaders, who were they? Rishis. And who are the rishis? The rishi, as he is called in the Upanishads, is not an ordinary man, but a mantra drashta. So one who can see a super sensory experience, one who can see something which is not visible to the normal eye, one who can touch something which is not visible for a physical hand to touch, one who can feel something which is not felt by a general human being. So that person is called rishi. He can see a mantra. He is a man who sees religion, to whom religion is not merely book learning, not argumentation, nor speculation, nor much talking, but actual realization, a coming face to face with truths which transcend the senses. So the one like Sri Ramakrishna, he never read a book, he never studied history and geography and anything. But what he used to see, as if nothing, there is no barrier at all. He used to see inside of a human being. He used to say, like a glass case, he's able to see what is there inside a human being. Means, what are his sanskaras? What are his past karmas? What are whatever he has been carrying for after birth, he used to see. And he used to know what is his bhava, whose devotee he is, whose worshipper he is, what are being his, what you can say, his history. So Sri Ramakrishna, as soon as he sees a person, or he goes to a place, he used to have so many kinds of visions. When he goes to Kashi, he sees there that Mahadeva, Shiva is giving mukti to the people who are dying there. Like that, he's directly seeing those things. Now, nobody can see with naked eye that in the Manikarnika Ghat of Varanasi, there people who are dying. The mother is giving them Taraka mantra, and Shiva is releasing their knots and giving them liberation. This vision, Sri Ramakrishna is actually seeing. He actually saw that Kashi is made of gold. He saw. So all these things that we read in our scriptures, that it is a golden city and it is the Shiva city, so on and so forth. What it is? That Sri Ramakrishna actually explained. When he went to Vrindavan, he actually had so many visions about Sri Krishna and Radha and those kind of gopis and so many things. And he told, I will not leave this place. He had such a great bhava there. This place is full of devotion and I don't want to leave this. You people go back. Like that he told his companions, this Mathur Babu, Sri Ramakrishna. You people go back, I am going to settle down here. Like that, because this is the place of love, divine love. So somehow he had to be pacified. Somehow they told him that no, your mother is waiting you in Kolkata Dakshineshwar temple. So she's an old mother. So then as soon as they reminded him of his mother, then he agreed to come back. Otherwise he was not ready to come back. So this is what Swamiji is telling. Who are our leaders whom we look up to for guidance? They are the mantra drashtas. They can see something super sensuous. This is Rishihood, and that Rishihood does not belong to any age or time, or even to sex or caste. Vatsyayana says, truth must be realized, and we have to remember that you and I and every one of us will be called upon to become Rishis. And we must have faith in ourselves. We must become world movers, for everything is in us. So Swamiji is telling that we must all of us, we must rise up to that Rishihood ourselves. And he is quoting here Vatsyayana, that truth must be realized. He is saying that truth should not be just talked about, truth should not be just read about, but truth should be actually experienced. And by experiencing that truth, you will become Rishi. Who is the Rishi? The one who experiences truth. So everybody should become a Rishi. Why one only should become Rishi and others should just go on reading his commentary and his writings? No, you should also experience. Then only it is useful. To read or to associate with a Rishi is useful only when you also become a Rishi. Otherwise, there is no use of associating with a Rishi or with a mantra drashta. So, we must see religion face to face, experience it, and thus solve our doubts about it. And then standing up in the glorious light of Rishihood, each one of us will be a giant. So, when we will rise to that Rishihood, then we will understand the problems of life. We will clearly see what is the solution. And then we will, that glorious light of Rishihood, we will rise to that like a giant. And every word falling from our lips will carry behind it that infinite sanction of security. And before us, evil will vanish by itself without the necessity of cursing anyone. So now we are fighting against evil and all. But if we rise ourselves to the Rishihood, then the evil will automatically vanish, because we will be a gigantic figure and everything will become a kind of a it will shrink in front of us, all the evil and everything, without the necessity of abusing anyone, without the necessity of fighting anyone in the world. So then we will not need to fight, because our very nature will be infinite, immortal. So in front of Sri Ramakrishna, nobody could stand. When one Gunda was there, somebody gave him a supari. Some tell, hey, you teacher, that Paramahansa is there, he teach a nice lesson to him. So suddenly I'm not able to remember his name. So he told, okay, he was just a gully youth, and then he notorious person. Then what, he came to teach him a lesson to Sri Ramakrishna because of some people are having against you. So then he came. But as soon as Sri Ramakrishna looked at him and smiled, then that person felt something and he completely got transformed. And then what happened? That then he became Sri Ramakrishna devotee. And he once, the direct disciple Akhandanji writes this about him. His name suddenly it is not coming. So Akhandanji says that he became such gunda who had come to beat Sri Ramakrishna and teach him a lesson. He became his such a devotee that he secretly used to come to him and take some kind of spiritual guidance. And then when we were in Varanagar Math, when they were sannyasin after Sri Ramakrishna's Mahasamadhi, then suddenly they will see one day this fellow comes with looking like a rishi, having a beard and a jata and everything, and sitting in the temple in front of Sri Ramakrishna and going on crying. That gunda, what we otherwise call evil person, who became completely transformed in front of this rishi, so to speak. If we have to say in this context, Sri Ramakrishna, rishi likes him, then what happened? This rishi, in front of this gigantic figure of Sri Ramakrishna, he became completely nothing. And his whole evil became vanished, and he became a rishi himself, that person. His name, something from M it is. Manmatha, correct, Manmatha. So this Manmatha was like that. So this Swamiji is telling, this is the actual experience, that that evil will vanish by itself without a necessity of cursing anyone. Then that person, then don't have to curse such kind of person, and that person also will lose the ability to curse you or beat you or harm you. He will become himself a completely transformed person. Like this is Akhandanji himself told. So last line we'll read and conclude. May the Lord help us, each one of us here, to realize the rishihood for our own salvation and for that of others. So Swamiji finally concludes this lecture with this prayer. This is in Madurai. He concludes, and then the next lecture he gives in Kumbakonam. So we will see the next lecture, very great, important lecture, the mission of the Vedanta. This is a very inspiring and very long lecture, it seems. So let us see next time. So probably our turn will come next month in the later half of the next month. So later half of both the Sundays, we will discuss about these lectures from Colombo to Almora. The first 2 Sundays probably gospel will be there. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.